Genesis chapter 13. Abram and Lot separate. Verse 1, and I read, And Abram went up out of Egypt, he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him into the Negeb. Verse 2, and Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold. Verse 3, and he went on his journeys from the Negeb even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai. Verse 4, unto the place of the altar which he had made there at the first, and there Abram called on the name of the Lord. Verse 5, and Lot also, who went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. Verse 6, and the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their possessions were great, so that they could not dwell together. Verse 7, and there was a strife between the headmen of Abram's cattle and the headmen of Lot's cattle, and the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelled then in the land. Verse 8, and Abram said unto Lot, Let there be no strife, I pray you, between me and you, and between my headmen and your headmen, for we are brethren. Verse 9, is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself, I pray you. For me, if you will take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if you depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left. Verse 10, and Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as you came unto Zoar. Verse 11, then Lot chose all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves the one from the other. Verse 12, Abram dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent towards Sodom. Verse 13, but the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. Verse 14, and the Lord said unto Abram, after Lot was separated from him, lift up now your eyes and look from the place where you are northward and southward and eastward and westward. Verse 15, for all the land which you see, to you will I give it, and to your descendant forever. Verse 16, and I will make your descendant as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall your descendants also be numbered. Verse 17, arise, walk through the land in the length of it and in the breadth of it, for I will give it unto you. Verse 18, then Abraham removed his tent and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and built there an altar unto the Lord. This ends our reading. Continuing from Genesis chapter 14, Abram rescued Lot. Verse 1, and I read, and it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arosh, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Giom. Verse 2, that these made war with Bera, king of Sodom, and with Bicha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, and Shemeba, king of Zibion, and the king of Bela, which is Zoar. Verse 3, all this was joined together in the valley of Siddim, which is the Salt Sea. Verse 4, 12 years they served Chedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they rebelled. Verse 5, and in the 14th year came Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him, and smote the Rephaim in Ashtaroth, Carnan, and the Zuzim in Ham, and the Enim in Shava, Carithium. Verse 6. And the Horites in the Mount Seir, unto Arpharam, which is by the wilderness. Verse 7. And they returned and came to Amisphat, which is Kadesh, and smote all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites that dwelt in Azizon Tamar. Verse 8. And they went out the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Admah, and the king of Zibium, and the king of Bela, the same is Zoar. And they joined battle with them in the valley of Siddim. Verse 9. With Chedorlaomer, the king of Elam, and with Tidal, king of Goiim, and Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arosh, king of Elisah, 4 kings with 5. Verse 10. And the valley of Shittim was full of bitumen pits. The kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and fell there. And they that remained fled to the mountains. Verse 11. And they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their provisions and went their way. Verse 12. And they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. Verse 13. And they came one that had escaped and told Abram the Hebrew, for he dwells by the oaks of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol, and brother of Amnah. And these were Elis with Abram. Verse 14. And when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants, born in his own house, 318, and persuaded them unto Dan. Verse 15. And he divided his forces against them, he and his servants, by night, and smote them, and persuaded them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. Verse 16. And he brought back all the goods, and also brought again his brother Lot, and his goods, and the women also, and the people. Verse 17. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer, and of the kings that were with him, and the valley of Shava, which is the king's valley. Verse 18. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God. Verse 19. And he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth. Verse 20. And blessed be the Most High God, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. And he gave him tithe of all. Verse 21. And the king of Sodom said unto Abram, Give me the persons, and take the goods of yourself. Verse 22. And Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up my hand unto the Lord, the Most High God, the possessor of heaven and earth. Verse 23. And I will not take from the thread even to the shoe torn, and that I will not take anything that is yours, lest you should say, I have made Abram rich. Verse 24. Except only that which the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men who went high with me, Anna, Achor, and Mamre, let them take their portion. This ends our reading.